Welcome to MLSsoccer.com's Playoff Central presented by Samsung Galaxy. With a special guest tonight, we have Dan Kennedy, Chivas USA captain and goalkeeper. And of course, Simon Borg. I'm not as excited to have Simon Borg here as I am to have Dan Kennedy. Dan's here to spice up the set a little. We needed to get better looking. Thanks, Simon.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
All right, guys. We have a special guest here, Dan Kennedy, of course, to go through two matches tonight. A big show because we have the New York Red Bulls in the first game hosting the Houston Dynamo. Then we have Sporting Kansas City hosting New England Revolution after that. That means at the end of today, we're going to be down to 6 teams left in the MLS playoffs. If you guys want, we could take a look at the bracket, see where things stand at this point. And you look after the results that happened over the weekend, the New York Red Bulls, Houston Dynamo, 2-2 on aggregate, headed into the game tonight. Then, of course, the New England Revolution with the 2-1 lead. They went out to a 2-0 lead, would have liked to hold that, but Kansas City drew one back, making things very interesting for that game later tonight. Of course, we will get into all of that, but first, the New York Red Bulls taking on the Houston Dynamo. That is the first game, 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. You can see it, of course, on Univision Deportes and on the Direct Kick package. You can see the Houston Dynamo warming up there. Simon, the big story, of course, Jamison Olave was red carded in the last match. Leaves a huge void for them. Marcus Holgerson, we expect to replace him. But, Dan, you've played against the New York Red Bulls this season without Jamison Olave. It's a different team, is it not?
Without a doubt, a different team. Olave brings experience. He's a massive physical presence on the field. And he also, maybe the most important characteristic for him is his ability to recover, not only for his mistakes, but the other defenders' mistakes. So for Holgerson, it's a huge challenge for him tonight to step into those shoes. He's not the same player. He needs to play his own game. He needs to make good decisions.
But I think it's not only on the field, Dan, also psychologically. How do the Red Bulls react knowing that they are now vulnerable, that they are a weaker team and everyone's telling them they're a weaker team? Do they chase harder and help out in the back, or do they kind of give up on plays knowing that, that's the back line we have? So it's going to be interesting to see.
Well, let's take a look at that. We mentioned Marcus Holgerson stepping in for Jamison Olave. Simon, take us through the New York Red Bulls lineup and the other changes that Mike Pecky is making, because there are a few of them.
Yeah, there are 3 in total, and each sector of the field is affected. We start in the back. As expected, Sakagya Holgerson partnering at center back, Barklage replacing Holgerson at right back. Moving to midfield, they moved Tim Cahill to midfield, and I presume that's to help that back line and offer some support. Lloyd Sam slotting in for Eric Alexander on the right. Then up top, because Cahill is receding in the lineup, you have Bradley Wright Phillips joining Thierry Henry up top. Interesting to see how these two will work together. I'm not convinced that's the best pairing up top.
All right, Simon, you mentioned that Tim Cahill would be back there in the midfield to help out that back line. And when you look at the set-piece defending that the New York Red Bulls have done this season, it's really come down to 2 people, Jamison Olave and Tim Cahill. So when you take Olave out of there, Dan, what is it like for a team to lose one of your best, if not your best, set-piece defender? What do you need to do now to make up for that?
Yeah, the Red Bulls' depth will be tested tonight, and Holgerson needs to step in and fulfill that role. He needs to make sure he is physical with Boswell or whomever he's marking. And they'll lack a little bit of something tonight, but if they can get out of the game with Holgerson picking up and being tight on the set pieces, it'll be a big advantage for New York.
All right, well, it's interesting because as good as the Houston Dynamo's reputation is on set pieces, Tim Cahill came out this week and basically said, I wasn't that impressed with them. They put a bunch of balls into the box. Here's the quote from him. That was 1 set play out of 40 they put in the box. I'm not too worried about it. They're definitely not the same team they were last season. I mean, those are some interesting words from Tim Cahill. Let me ask you, Simon, is Houston that much worse than last year, or are they similar to where they were as far as set pieces go?
Well, Jason, when you look at the numbers, the attack is producing similar numbers compared to last year. They're off by 2 corner kick goals, but they're roughly around the same number. I think people don't pay attention to it as much because Brad Davis, his set piece, his assists are down this season, and also they don't have those hulking figures in the attack to draw that storyline from game to game.
The guys they used to have, Brian Ching, Jeff Cameron, Andre Haino, those guys were getting on the end of set pieces, it seemed like every other week.
Yeah, well, but this is something to note. Defensively, they are still the best team in Major League Soccer at defending free kicks in the final third. So that hasn't changed. They may have lost some guys, they may have lost that appeal of being the big physical side, but defensively they're still strong.
All right, Houston Dynamo with a history of being strong on set pieces and a history of succeeding in the playoffs. When you look at the New York Red Bulls, on the other hand, since Red Bull Arena was opened, they have not had a very good history. They lost 3-1 at home to the San Jose Earthquakes in the playoffs. They lost 1-0 to LA. Remember Rafa Marquez kicking the ball at Landon Donovan. And then they lost last year, remember, dramatically to DC United. That history is something that Mike Pecky wants to change. We have Katie Witham out at Red Bull Arena. She spoke to both coaches, including Mike Pecky, to find out what needs to happen tonight for that to change for the Red Bulls.
Go ahead.
Well, Mike, as you get set for this game against the Dynamo, you've talked all week the importance of maintaining your defensive shape. Missing a guy like Jamison Olave today due to the red card suspension, is there one guy in particular that you need to see step up?
No, actually the whole back four has to step up in his absence. Completely confident. We have guys like Sagaya and Holgerson who have played together on many occasions this year and done well. These guys are seasoned professionals and they understand what's at stake. One player's absence, the other guys to step up, so all four of them are looking to step up.
Dynamo, a team that you've seen a lot this season. You're looking for your fourth win this year against these guys, which is a tough thing to do in the same season. But with that, what concerns you the most? And specifically, what do you need to see maybe early in this game to get a result?
Well, talking about concerning, I mean, you know, they're a playoff team. The last 3 years, the last 5 or 6 years, they show up around playoff time. Last 2 years, making it to the final. As far as what I need to see from us is we need to instill our will on the game from the first whistle. We're at home. It's a clean slate game. We need to show right from the start that we're here to play. Balance is huge today. I know they're going to probably sit in a little bit and look for a counterattack. We cannot be exposed to that. So we can't have 5, 6 guys ahead of the ball in the attack. We have to have a good balance throughout the team. Let our attackers do their job, and our defensive-minded guys pay attention to when we lose the ball.
All right, Mike, we're looking forward to it. Good luck today.
Thank you very much.
Well, Dom, you're getting set for your third game in 7 days. Physically and mentally, how are your guys doing right now?
I think mentally we're fine because we're still playing. It's better to be playing than sitting at home not doing anything. So, and physically, all the pain goes away when it's come to playoff. The guys are ready.
This is going to be your 5th game against the Red Bulls this year. You've already seen them 4 times. What have you learned from those games?
They're a good team. I think when it comes down to this part of the season, there's not a ton of secrets. So we know they have good quality players. I think the one thing we'd like to change is scoring first. If we can score first tonight, obviously, it changes something different than the way we played them before.
Now, looking at Sunday's game, you guys were able to come back from a 2-0 deficit. I know you were watching this, obviously. A lot of the guys said they felt different in the second half. What did you like from that second half, and is that what you need to see along with scoring first today?
Well, I thought the goal by Ricardo Clark gave us a big lift. You know, it was early in the second half, and it gave us confidence and some energy. And obviously, when they went a man down, the guys, I think, had a little bit of a killer instinct and kept on pressing. So it was nice to see that goal come late, and hopefully it continues tonight.
All right, Dom, good luck tonight. Appreciate it,
Katie.
All right, there you have it. Dominic Kinnear saying his team's not tired because they're still in the playoffs. They're still going at it. And his team better not be tired. As you take a look now at the Houston Dynamo lineup, you're seeing a lot of the same faces that were out there last week. Tally Hall in net, of course, Kofi Sarkodie, Bobby Boswell, Eric Bruner, Corey Ash make up the back line. That is the same exact team that you saw out there last week, and it stays the same in the midfield with Boniek Garcia and Brad Davis. On the wings, Clark and Craval team up in the middle. And then, of course, up top, Giles Barnes and Will Bruin. Dominic Kinnear doesn't make any changes here, Dan. He says his team's not tired. At least mentally, they're not tired. Is that enough when they go out there in this playoff match against the Red Bulls?
Well, this is what they've built success on in the playoffs, is that continuity. For me, I look at a guy like Will Bruin tonight. Can he build on last week's performance in that game he had against New York? He was tremendous, maybe a little bit better than he's been all season. The other player I look at is Boniek Garcia, and he's dynamic. We know how dangerous they are on set pieces. What we want to see from him is something in the run of play.
Simon, I think when you look at this team, Houston Dynamo, Boniek Garcia is a huge piece on the right side, but last game we saw them go to the right side over and over and over. They need to get Brad Davis involved in here on a regular basis.
They do, and that's why I was a little surprised not to see Driver involved here, Andrew Driver, because I thought with the wider field at Red Bull Arena, I thought they might use Driver, who likes to hug the line and go up and down and really drive them nuts on that, and Brad Davis is not going to give you that. But yeah, they need to use him more, and they need to be ready to attack the two center backs. I think Barnes and Bruin have to make those runs, drive them nuts.
All right, guys, we're getting ready to get your predictions on this game, but first I want to take a look at what some of the people are saying out there in the social media world on this game. There were plenty of responses that we got that were positive towards Houston, plenty positive towards the Red Bulls. Let's take a look at some of the people who thought Houston would do well. This one is my favorite from Zach K. He says, you don't bet against Dom Kinnear in the fall, period. And I think we've seen that over time. Dominic Kinnear and the Houston Dynamo get it done in the playoffs.
Until they don't get it done.
It's got to happen at some point, right? All right, let's take a look at what people are saying. There are definitely some people favoring the Red Bulls as well here, including Dan, who says Olave's absence will be felt, but Houston's fatigue will be felt much more. And Dominic Kinnear just addressed it and said mentally they're not fatigued, but he didn't say that physically they wouldn't be fatigued. So let's see, what do you guys think is going to happen in this game? Dan, give me your prediction for the New York-Houston.
I think it's at Red Bull Arena. I think that favors Red Bull. I think they're going to come through victorious in this playoff match, and I'll say it's going to be at a 3-1 scoreline.
All right. Simon, what do you got?
I think someone's going to have to bring the game to the other team. I think it's the Red Bulls at home. They're going to have to take it to Houston. Houston will sit back, comfortably pick their moments, and as long as they don't overcommit in their tackles and they stay organized and frustrate you in New York, they're going to have chances. I think they win 2-1.
All right, I'm going the other way. I'm taking New York 2-1. I just think the talent that we've seen, Thierry Henry can do something special. I think that will be enough to make the difference in this game. And what was a very close series, considering that Houston had to play that extra game beforehand. We're going to move on now to the other matchup. The New England Revolution take a 2-1 aggregate advantage into Sporting Kansas City. Guys, this matchup, the first leg, had plenty of excitement to it. We saw the New England Revolution go up 2-0 at home, including a controversial goal by Andy Dorman early, then a phenomenal goal by Kellen Rowe. Good combination play by the Revs. Of course, that was answered almost immediately by Aurelian Collin for Sporting Kansas City. When you look at this game, I should mention 9 o'clock p.m. tonight from Sporting Park, and you can see it on MLS Live. When you look at this game, Simon, you'd think that Sporting Kansas City would probably be happy with a 1-goal deficit going home, because they got to figure they're going to win at home by at least 1 goal, no?
Except history says otherwise, Jason. That's why I think it's a tough job here for that awaits Sporting Kansas City. We saw it against the Houston Dynamo last two playoffs, last 2 years, and they come up short. They're forced to attack, forced to get goals, and they don't have enough ideas. They don't have enough weapons to penetrate. I think it might also come down to the formation they use, but I think it's going to be a difficult task for Sporting Kansas City.
And something else that I guess could be going against Sporting here, I'm not really sure what to make of it, but a lot of people making a big deal over Bieler, their designated player, not going to New England for that game. Peter Vermees said it was just part of the tactics, it was part of the strategy that he had. But now we're kind of getting the sense that maybe Bieler won't be involved tonight either. I have to ask you, Dan, in the locker room, is that something that people are talking about? Is that something that could cause a rift between anyone?
It's definitely a strange situation, and I think Bieler's been their best forward this season. That's why it's so interesting. But Vermees has showed throughout this season and with this team, even in the last couple years, that this group is united, and they always seem to come together. So I would expect nothing less. Whether he's on the field tonight, whether he's starting, whether he comes in as a sub, I don't think it affects the group, but it may affect the outcome of the game.
Simon, I know that when you look at this team, you think that they should potentially switch over to a 4-4-2 at times. I know you've been critical of them in the past playoff losses for not being able to adjust. Give me your thoughts on what they need to do here.
Because what we've seen, especially with Houston, against Houston in those playoff matchups, a lot of crosses coming in, but no one in the box to take advantage. So this is the 4-3-3 Sporting Kansas City utilize, and you see there's one player in the box, that's center forward, but then the wingers, they have a longer way to come to crash into the box. Not enough guys to take advantage of crosses. So I think at some point in the game, he has to throw in a second forward, Peter Vermees does. And if he does, you have the two forwards occupying the central defenders in the box where the balls are. They're able to play off each other, make runs that complement one another. Then you have the midfielders, the wingers, that can always also crash the box. So you have more options. And I think at some point in the game, if the goals don't come early, you got to entertain that option.
All right, if the goals don't come, you got to imagine Graham Zuzi's not getting enough of the ball. He didn't see a lot of the ball in New England. So, Dan, moving over to New England's side, what did they do right in that last game? And can they just play the same game now that they go on the road to Sporting Park, or does the fact that it's a road game change things at all?
They should play the exact same game. We expect Kansas City to dictate the game with possession. It will probably have the similar statistics as last game, 60% to New England's 40%. And they have a young group, very energized group. So when they do win turnovers, when they do get into the attack, they can do punishment in a way and score some goals.
All right, well, when you look at New England, they have the attack, but they also have a little bit of a hole in the back line. Chris Tierney out, Kevin Olsen out, and Darius Barnes came in to fill in at left back. Not a natural left back, more of a right back or center back. If Alston is healthy tonight, and we don't have the lineup this early, do you stick with Barnes anyway because he played the last game and he's comfortable there against this team?
Jason, I think you do, partly because he played very well against Sporting Kansas City in that first leg, and he's familiar now with the opponent. But Barnes gives you a weapon in the air, and we know Kansas City, they're going to have those crosses coming into the box. To have another player who can be an aerial force for you, along with Gonsalves, along with AJ Soares, it can only help.
All right, Barnes, of course, in the lineup because Kevin Alston is out and also Chris Tierney is out. Remember, the regular left back. We have people on the ground at all these stadiums. They caught up with Tierney earlier today to ask him what the Revs have to do as far as game planning against the Sporting Kansas City attack.
We've watched tons of film on Zuzi, Sapong, Feilhaber, a lot of their players that we expect are going to be dangerous for them, and we've looked at their tendencies and ways that they like to attack, and we have a pretty specific game plan to try to take away their strengths, but it's also about when we have the ball what we do with it. So it's breaking that first wave of pressure that they throw at us, and we feel that if we do that well, that there's going to be space to exploit on the counterattack, and if we get the ball down and play our game and pass and move, then we'll have plenty of opportunities to nick a goal or two.
All right, like you mentioned there, Dan, he says they got to do it on the counter attack. All right, we're going to get your predictions before we wrap up this pregame show. But first, let's take a look at what's going on in the social media world around this game. I was searching for tweets on Twitter. Let's see what the feedback says. New England Revolution oust Sporting Kansas City in a 1-1 draw, says Tom Lombardo. Zuzi and Mbango with the lone goals for each side. We have a couple people actually picking the Revolution as well. Of course, there are the fans, including Michael, who think Sporting Kansas City is going to romp in this game with a 3-0 win. So let's get your predictions. We'll start with our special guest tonight, Dan Kennedy. Dan, what do you have as a result for this match?
I think Kansas City comes out attacking. I think they get an early goal. They get the crowd behind them, and I think they'll secure it late and have a 2-0 victory.
All right, that would send Kansas City to the conference final. Simon, who you got?
I think it's going to be another playoff struggle for Kansas City at home. I think New England in their last road games have shown me that they know how to pack it in. They know how to frustrate the opponent and adjust to the Sporting Kansas City team. They've had the least passing accuracy of any games they've played this year against Sporting Kansas City. So they adjust, pack it in, 0-0. New England goes through.
All right, Simon says the Revs go through. I think Sporting Kansas City wins this game. I have them winning it 2-1, but I also have the New England Revolution advancing on penalty kicks. Now, for our sake, because we're going to be here for a post-game show after this, I hope it doesn't go to penalty kicks. I'd like to get home and get to sleep tonight because we're going to do this over tomorrow night as well for the Western Conference semifinals. Don't forget to check out our post-game show. It will